this will be the first time that I even mention this publicly, but we're going to have an ability where it will analyze your book, and that it will come back and tell you that, hey, these are our suggested 7 Kindle keyword phrases that you should use based off of sales history of the past of books like yours.
I have a special treat for everybody today. I am with Dave Chesson, a commissioned officer with the U.S. Navy at one point and a champion of self-publishing. First of all, thank you so much, Dave, for being here, and thank you for your service to our country.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Dan.
What was your inspiration to join the military?
Well, my father was in the military, my grandfather, both grandfathers. My entire family is pretty much Navy, with one black sheep being Army and another black sheep being Coast Guard.
Very good. What lessons did the military teach you about life and business?
Well, that could be about a 2 or 3 hour conversation alone. Definitely, one of the big things was discipline, being very intentional about what you do and the time you put into things. Another is being in control of your schedule, being on time. As the military would say, to be early is to be on time is to be late is unforgivable. And it's just a couple of other lessons that I learned either from individuals that I worked for or worked with, and life experiences. But yeah, across the board, it was a wonderful experience.
For everybody who hasn't visited kindlepreneur.com, that is Dave founded kindlepreneur.com, and he has it's just a full-featured website that helps self-publishers to learn about the business and to sell their books and to get themselves noticed. And if you click on that About Dave section, you'll find some really interesting things about him. You've done a lot of different things, Dave. Besides the military, you have an interest in search engine optimization. So what came first? Was it SEO or your desire to self-publish stories eventually?
SEO actually came first. The reason for it was back in the day, I was looking at blogging, being able to write. I was stationed in Korea without my family. And, my wife and I decided that I needed to get out of the military and be able to come home and be with her and the kids. And so I was looking for some way to be able to build a job, a career from the other side of the world without, the ability to be up at the same time as everybody else. And so being able to write and do SEO seemed to be a really good fit. But for me specifically, SEO is incredibly important because I have never been such a good writer that I could write about anything and people would want to pay money to read it. I can't write about tying my shoes and making a masterpiece. But what I have learned though is that when I know that, hey, there's like 1,000 people a month that are actively searching for something that will teach them about this, or that would talk about this or would entertain them about that, then I could do that. And then it's not just writing because of it, it's writing with purpose. I now know that if I do a really good job, that there are going to be 1,000 people a month that will find this and they will benefit because of it. And that just brought so much more gravitas to my writing. And it really got me to love, there's something beautiful about knowing that there are thousands of people that are benefiting because of the time you're taking right now to write something. And so I thoroughly enjoyed it and loved that. I built a couple of websites and I was bringing in traffic, but the problem is that I still wasn't meeting my financial goal. In blogging back in the day, you could do like Google AdSense, maybe a little bit of affiliate and things like that. But, it was not going to be able to afford for me to get out of the military and, take care of my family. So one of the ideas I had was, well, what if I take all the information from this website and I put it into a book and I put it on Amazon? And, that way I can send people from my website to go buy the book on Amazon. I can increase my revenue / profit margins and things like that. This would be cool. So I did it. But then I was like, why is it that Amazon's showing this other guy's book over mine? How can I get Amazon to show my book instead of their book? And this got me using my SEO skills, right? Search engine optimization on Amazon itself, Amazon search engine optimization. What's a little fun fact is I used to write for a SEO company called SEMrush back in the day. And some people have said that I wrote an article way back when called Amazon SEO, and somebody claimed that I was the first person to attach SEO to Amazon just because of how old that was. I would disagree. I'm pretty sure I saw somebody else do that as well, but I can't put my finger on it. But needless to say, I really studied Amazon's search engine, their search algorithm. I figured out why they show one book over another. I experimented. And that was when all of a sudden, when I could do that, that is when my whole book writing world blew up. Like I could then go to Amazon and say to myself, okay, how can I figure out what people want on Amazon and how they can find, and what are they being presented? And then I could say to myself, I could do better than that. I could create a better book cover. I could write a much better book. And then as I start to learn more about book marketing, I was able to write these books, get them in front of all those Amazon shoppers, and just kind of build my career. And so at one point, I finally made more than enough money from my books to be able to basically say to the military, I appreciate you, thank you, but I'm out. I got that DD-214, and I was out the door, and I've been home with my kids ever since, which has just been absolutely wonderful.
That's an absolutely fascinating story. And by the way, you're talking to a fellow SEMrush subscriber and user. I
Oh,
really
nice.
do. I really do love their service. How similar do you think Amazon search engine is to the way Google or Bing operates? Is it like a less full featured version of it? Maybe they're like a few generations behind, but it operates pretty similarly.
No, actually, they're very different. And they're different because of the sheer fact of Amazon is in the business of making as much money as it can. Google is in the business of showing as much relevancy as possible. So, what do I mean by that? Well, on Amazon, they know without a doubt that when they show book A over book B, that they make more money for that search term. And when they show book B instead of A, they make less. And so their decision matrix is heavily connected to what makes them more money. Now, there's tertiary aspects to that. There's clicks, there's engagements, etc. But the biggest thing is that they know without a doubt that this book will make them more money, this one will not. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that with Google, when you're writing an article, you can structure that article as much as you want. You can use giant H2 tags. You can, you have all of this space to be able to, you can put pictures, you can put videos, you can do all these things. And that helps the engine there to understand that it's a much better form of content. In Amazon, we are incredibly limited with what we can do. We get to upload a book. We get to choose a book cover. We get to choose a title, a subtitle. We can even put in a book description. You can set technically to editorial reviews. And then there's other things that they can read to help what is called index the book. But we're not as open as it is. So we're really reliant. We in self-publishing only have like 5 or 6 things that you can do to directly influence the algorithm, the search engine of Amazon. On Google, there's thousands of things you can do. So those 6 things in self-publishing are even more important than they would be, on the other side. And then once you've done that, once you've given Amazon that ability to say, okay, got it, we really understand this book really should show up for sci-fi space marines. Okay, what then comes to is, did you do a good job on the presentation of your book, okay, and the book itself? So, for example, if I targeted sci-fi space marines, okay, and I've done all this great work, I've done my research, I've done, I've written a great title, and blah blah blah, but my book cover shows, some guy in khakis standing, next to a lamppost. There is no way you're going to work well on that. And the reason is because that cover does not fit what sci-fi space marine readers would want to read, right? You have
Exactly.
not truly engaged them. So what Amazon's going to see is they'll put you up there, and then they're going to see that every sci-fi space marine person, the person who types that in Amazon, they're not going to click on your book. They're going to click on the book below you and that forth. And all of a sudden Amazon sees this. They're like, okay, when we put this book up there, it is not making us sales. It's not making us money. Get rid of it. and all of a sudden that book disappears and they stop showing it. So this is why there's a really important balance between doing your keyword research, okay, understanding what you should target, and then making sure that you're using that information to index. But then after that, it's about making sure that you know your market so that when you finally get your book in front of people, people will actually walk out the door with it. They will buy it, they will engage with it. And when you do those two things together, that's when you really hit that sweet sauce with Amazon, and you start making continuous sales, and Amazon starts actually promoting your book more on their site, because they're like, all right, if it's doing great with sci-fi space marines, we should also put in alien invasion. We should show it for, Earth bombardment, like all of these other terms they know work well with that. They're going to throw it out there, and then again, they're going to say, wow, it's making more sales. And all of a sudden you get Amazon working hard to sell your book. And that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope everybody understands the power of what Dave is talking about. You certainly need to establish relevancy, and you can do that with your title, with your cover, with obviously the book itself. But and I don't say anything against advertising or marketing, because I've made a lot of money off of those for my books. But we're talking here about allowing Amazon users to find your book organically, and how much power that gives an author. You don't have to spend a penny on this. This is just a matter of brain power and being creative. So let's talk about the next step, and that is, I believe, there are a lot of ways you can come up with keyword ideas, but I don't think that there's anything better than Publisher Rocket out there, which you market. This was formerly known as KDP Rocket for people who may be familiar with that. What was your inspiration for creating Rocket? Did you kind of see all these things that were working for you and say, let's put this together into an app?
Yeah, so way back in the day, before KDP Rocket, or Publisher Rocket now, existed, uh, I had crazy Excel sheets that I would use. I would be spending hours digging on Amazon, pulling in information. I would find, phrases that people might be typing into Amazon. I would then look to see how much money books were making. I would then be grading whether or not a book was easy to beat or hard to beat, and I would update it daily. I was spending probably 3 to 4 hours a day just trying to track the information. Now, it's funny is you may be saying, well, Dave, that sounds like a really, waste of time. No, not really, because when you find these things, like it was like you build it, they will come. And that was a wonderful thing. But the other thing too, though, is the entire book publishing industry has run off of this kind of information. Just self-publishers back in my day, we didn't have access to that kind of thing. So publishing companies are always tracking trends in sales. They're looking at what's hot, what's not. An example I like to give is when the book Twilight came out. If you had happened to send in a vampire romance novel at the time, even if you were a bad writer, they would have signed you in a heartbeat, and they would have put a really good cover on it, and they would have made good money. They just know these things. So they're not operating off of a vacuum. They're not sticking their finger up in the air and testing where the wind's coming from. They have this kind of data. So I was trying to basically say, okay, the publishers have this competitive advantage over us self-publishers. That stinks. I got an Excel sheet, but authors are never going to use the kind of stuff I'm doing. Nobody wants to burn 3, 4, 5 hours a day just to be able to have their finger on the pulse and know what's happening. So I said, there's got to be something better. And so I got together with a bunch of really amazing programmers. And I said, look, guys, we need to make a very intuitive, easy to use program that will help put self-publishers into the seat, that publishing companies have. Being able to allow them to see what's happening, how much books are making, what are the best keywords they should use to give their book the best chance to get in front of more people. And so we started building Publisher Rocket with exactly that in mind. And since then, since it came out about, what was that, 7 years ago? I should know this, but it just feels so long. But we have constantly been adding new features, because as an author, I'm constantly like, wouldn't it be nice if I could see this? And I'm like, hey guys, guess what? We got a new thing we need to work on. Let's figure out how to do that. And so it's been an absolute passion from this point, because, I run into a problem as an author and I'm like, let's fix that. Hey guys. So it's been wild.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that Publisher Rocket is a great assistant for authors if you're conducting market research, analyzing your competition, just trying to come up with good keyword ideas so people can find your book, relevant keyword ideas, that is. One of the things that I love about Publisher Rocket is, and this is a small thing, and I'm often amused by silly stuff, but when I click on it, I always get my little woohoo that there has been a change made. And this is a great thing because you are constantly updating Publisher Rocket. It just keeps getting better and better, and you don't charge an extra penny for that.
Mhm.
What are some of the biggest changes that you've made over the last few years?
Well, it's funny is honestly, Amazon can be maddening, right? But it's I jokingly say because Amazon keeps changing, it requires me to stay on my toes. It requires me to, keep on top of the game here. Um, Amazon, back when I first created Rocket, Amazon didn't have the Amazon ad system, right? And when that came out, it was like, oh my goodness, so we had to roll up the sleeves, figure out exactly like how Amazon ads work, and what's the best way that we can do this. And so we actually created the Amazon ads feature. By the way, people don't know this, but in about a month, we're going to have a brand new revamp of that entire system. And it is going to be so sweet. The beautiful thing about Rocket, here's another thing that people don't know. It's kind of like, if you buy a car, right? You got this really cool car, but you don't know what the engine is. Well, let me tell you about this engine, okay? Over the past couple of years, we have been in the data collection world, and that's collecting as much information on Amazon as possible. We even have terabytes of this information. What's beautiful about that is that we now know we can proactively say what's going to work well on Amazon. We also know what Amazon likes and what they don't like. So we have been using this database to now create Amazon ad suggestions, saying that, hey, tell us a little bit about your book. And then we use previous data to come in with a list of keywords that says, hey, books like this have done really well in Amazon for these keywords. And these we think are incredibly relevant for your book. And therefore, your cost is going to be a lot lower than some of these other ones. And so we're designing this where it's just, instead of guesswork, instead of copy and paste, instead of the shotgun effect of trying to choose as many words as possible, this is going to give you the, based off Amazon and the history on Amazon and books like yours, these are truly relevant words that we know Amazon likes. And that's a good, important thing to say, is what Amazon likes. The reason why that's important is because, like I said, when we were talking about Amazon as a search engine, right? Amazon is in the business of making themselves the most money. They know that books that do well on this keyword phrase also do really well on these as well, whether you ask for it or not. And so now we're tapping into that knowledge and we're able to say, hey, book, we know that Amazon's going to like your book for these phrases. And when that happens, you sell more, you have better engagement, and Amazon likes you more. And so that to me is like the wonderful trifecta. So I know I could go on about a lot of other things that we've done, like revamping the entire category system, discovering Amazon's crazy ghost categories that are really a sucker punch to the stomach. But I think the most important thing is, over the past couple of years, we have collected so much data on Amazon itself that we're now making it where our system can almost talk to you like we're Amazon and give you the things that Amazon doesn't tell you. And that to me is by far the most exciting thing of all.
That is tremendously exciting. And to me, like, a keyword is a keyword. So if a user goes to Amazon, a potential reader for your book, when they're typing in a keyword, it's something that they're looking for in a book, they're going to see ad results, but they're also going to see organic results. So I have to imagine that you can easily take these ad keyword suggestions and pop them right into your organic keywords in KDP as well.
Absolutely. So right after we come out with this revamp of the Amazon ad system, we're going to be coming out with another thing. I've got a code word for this feature. As a matter of fact, this will be the first time that I even mention this publicly, but we're going to have an ability where it will analyze your book and that it will come back and tell you that, hey, these are our suggested 7 Kindle keyword phrases that you should use based off of sales history of the past of books like yours and what would be a good fit. Now you can choose to change those up or so, but this will be a game changer, I think. And like I said, and like you said too, is that anybody who owns Rocket, you get access to that, so as I come out with these new features or update or so, it's just poof, woohoo, Rocket just got better.
Well, yeah, I am going to be clicking that button quite a bit, I think, over the next few months to see these changes roll out. If anybody has not taken a shot at Publisher Rocket yet, I think now is a great time to jump on board by all means. And it's very fairly priced, and you're not getting involved in a subscription or anything like that. So I know that a lot of people have done really well with Publisher Rocket. I have myself. Can you share a success story or two of an author who was struggling, used Publisher Rocket, and all of a sudden they had book visibility and sales?
Oh man,
we don't have to use names.
Yeah, well, honestly, we get at least 1 to 2 emails about that. And it's funny is we actually created a testimonial page on Publisher Rocket where it's when people have either contacted us on support, or an email, we've sent them a link like, hey, would you mind just kind of telling that story? And off the top of my head, I was jumping on just to make sure it is, but it's publisherrocket.com / I think testimonials. And it should bring up, nope, I'm going to have to find that. Oh yeah, there it is. It is publisherrocket.com / testimonials. And you can just see an entire list, of people over time that have talked about what it did for them. But generally speaking, I've seen a couple. I've seen people where they got their book idea because of Publisher Rocket, and Amazon, they did better than they thought because Amazon was helping them. I've also seen too where people published a book and it kind of died off, and then they went in and they changed up their keywords thanks to suggestions, and they saw a bump in sales, and again, life came back to it. I've also seen where people, and this is kind of the sad story but a true one, is that people had a book idea, they went through Rocket, and they found out that Amazon was not going to help them. Okay. And what I mean by that is that it doesn't mean that that person didn't have to write the book. Okay. They could still choose to write that book. But now they know without a doubt that Amazon's not going to automatically just send people to their book because there's no known interest in it. That being said, is that if you still choose to write that book, you either A, need to temper your expectations, or B, you need to invest heavily in what I call interruptive marketing, which is where you go find your market out there and you bring them to your book. That's like Facebook advertisement. That's like Amazon ads. That's like where you are, proactively getting in front. And so either A, it stopped those people from writing a book that they would have been severely disappointed in the results, or B, it helped them to change their marketing efforts and their strategy so as to better reflect what their book is. A good example of this, and honestly, anybody listening, I'll tell you, the hardest book genre to sell, okay, the hardest, and granted, there's outliers, but it's memoirs. Memoirs are the hardest. And the reason for this is because a memoir is the combination of a nonfiction and a fiction. Okay. What I mean by that is that you're telling a true story, so aka nonfiction, generally speaking, but you're writing it like it's as entertainment, right? In an entertaining way. It's not a textbook. It's a story that people engage. To combine your efforts with both things, okay, because they're nonfiction and fiction are very different, but to do one where you got to kind of walk the line of both at the same time makes marketing even harder. The second thing, though, about it is that when you are in memoirs, it is super rare for somebody to be like, oh my gosh, I need my next read on middle child syndrome, but I want a middle child memoir. Like, majority of people that go to shop or so they really don't sit and say, oh man, I would love to read a book about being the middle child in the 1950s. It just doesn't happen. And that's one of those where an advertisement on Facebook that shows a family where it's black and white, but the middle kid in the family is colored and they have a sad look on their face will evoke emotion of somebody that will tell them, oh my goodness, I was a middle child. I get what that picture means. They will engage with it and then hopefully come over and buy. But to come in and think that, people will proactively just look for it, well, Rocket would tell you, no, they don't. So, and I think that is a powerful statement. It's a weird one to say, like, you would say sad story, but what's worse is somebody spending hundreds of hours and money to develop this book, thinking that Amazon's going to sell it. And so they plan their entire marketing around that. And then they throw it up there and crickets. And then they feel either that their story isn't important or that, you know, which is not true. It's just you got the marketing down and you had the wrong strategy. I think that's just key.
Yeah, totally. Time is money. And if you can save yourself some headaches and heartache, then by all means, you know, if that allows you to adjust midstream and go into a different direction, I find that very, very valuable. I know that sometimes Amazon can be a little bit funky in how it ranks its books. This happens to me very uncommonly, but there are times when I'll notice that even if I use a relevant keyword combination with very low competition, there are times where Amazon just won't rank that book for these words, no matter what I do. Are there ways to nudge the Amazon algorithm before you give up on a keyword?
Yes, there are a couple of ways. Number one is that sometimes you might not see that you rank there, because Amazon as a store is not very holistic. They change a lot of things based off of the IP address, location, the shopping habits, the people. And so sometimes I tell people, they're like, hey, I did all these things and I didn't rank number one for it. I'm like, well, you didn't rank number one from your perspective. I've seen dramatically where a book ranks number one in certain sections of America and is like 10 in certain sections of America. Sometimes they also like to A/B test. It's called jumping. They'll jump a book around and they'll test to see, did people click here? So like imagine, historically speaking, let's say sci-fi military, okay? Sci-fi military, a book, and again, I'm making these numbers up, but a book that ranks number one for sci-fi military can expect like 37% of people that type it in will click that, okay? That's the benchmark in Amazon's mind. Well, when they put your book there, if it's only clicked 21% of the time, then they know it's not good. So they'll jump it around and they'll jump it and jump it and jump it and see where it should be based off of the engagement / sales. So the rankings, it's very time dependent. It's them testing. It's also IP address. So you might have honestly been there and not known it. You might have been given that opportunity and it didn't stick, or it might have been that they understand that, hey, Texans really love, this kind of book, but the Californians don't. And so they'll change it up just a little bit in that respect. But when you have shown that there's existence, okay, this is a little bit of a hack, okay? And I don't like the word hack, but in this particular case, people listening to this podcast, I know you guys are legitimate writers. We're not, you're not get rich quick, with minimal effort. So I'm going to share this hack that's, just don't abuse it. It becomes a bad thing if you abuse it, okay? I have found that when I go to publish my book, if I have, say, 10 people that I know are going to purchase my book, okay, I just know these 10 will. They're either my street team or, they're my peeps, whatever it is. I will not send them the link to the page to buy it. I will tell them to go to Amazon and type in this keyword phrase and find my book. And what that does is immediately upon launch, I have 10 people that prove to Amazon, and I might do a smack roll of a couple of keywords, but because it doesn't take much. The moment that you hit publish and you have like 3 sales on this particular keyword where you came out of like nowhere, you shoot right up there. And what happens is that when you do this, the people will type the keyword in, they will scroll down until they find your book, they will click on your book, they will purchase it. Amazon's like, oh, okay. And then the next person, when they do it, they don't have to scroll down as much. And then all of a sudden you're up there. Now, the reason why I am not poisoning the well by giving this out is because this tactic absolutely gives you that opportunity to finally be at the top and for that market to see you. But it comes down to your book and its quality and its connection with that phrase that you will either absolutely benefit from this Or in time, Amazon will be like, okay, well, it had a surge here. It's clearly not doing, we've sent 100 people to see this and they're not interacting with it. And you'll drift to where you deserve to be. But that hack will give you the opportunity, and then it's up to your book. And I keep stressing that because, like I said, there's two things to this marketing aspect. There's getting your keywords right, getting Amazon to index you for it. Okay, boom. And then there's designing a book that truly fits that market. You give me a book that has what looks like clip art for a book cover, and even if I devoted my absolute and I would say that I'm pretty knowledgeable on marketing. We'll put it that way, in book marketing. I can't sell it. There's no way I can get that out there if you've got like a book cover that doesn't fit the genre, doesn't fit what people are looking for, looks unprofessional, looks undone. Like, it just won't happen. And so I call this the symbiotic relationship of the book, because when you think of the process by which people will find your book and buy it, they start by describing the book they want. That's the keyword they enter into the search phrase. Then they're scrolling down and they're looking at the covers that jump out to them, as in, that's a good looking cover that fits what I expect, that fits the genre I love, or that fits, the information that I'm looking to learn. And then they will read the title and subtitle, verifying that, yeah, okay, this is it. They click on it. Then it's your book description that's to sell them and to get them to commit. And when you've done that, you end up with a sale. And that whole process, Amazon is watching your book and watching how people are doing it. They're watching what's called the sales funnel, and they're seeing if you're converting. And there is wherein lies the real absolute success of it.
Very good. I noticed some authors too, and this bothers me, will work keywords not only into their descriptions, which I think is probably fine, but into the subtitles. I'm not going to mention names, but there's one publishing house that just loves to stuff multiple keywords into the subtitles. In fact, I think I can even recite, one book is something like a gripping, heart-stopping psychological thriller with a terrifying twist or something like that. I frown upon stuff like that. I would assume that Amazon doesn't like it either, but I see it being done over and over. Do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I actually disagree with it.
Okay.
But with the caveat of, remember when I said, like, hey, here's a great tactic, but if you overdo it, it poisons the well a little bit. Yeah, you putting a giant string of all the words, like you're gamifying the, you're gaming the system. Okay, and that's not cool. But here's what I mean by, especially, let's start with fiction. Okay, fiction is usually the least obvious of them on it. I definitely recommend, especially to new fiction authors, to actually describe the genre that the book is a part of. So here's a great example of it. All right, there's a book cover, and I use this inside of a presentation of mine, and it shows what I think it's like it's a hill, and there is a horse, and it appears to maybe be a cowboy. It's dark, it's nighttime. Okay, I think it's a cowboy maybe on the horse, and then in the background there's all of these fireworks going off. Okay, and the name of the book is a one-word name. I can't remember it off the top of my head. I think it's like Hutch or Hitch, and that's it. There's no subtitle. There is just the author name, one word title, and a shadowy figure sitting on a hill. That book should absolutely use a subtitle that helps me to understand what kind of book it is, because now maybe people know who the author is and therefore they automatically know what to expect. But me as a new shopper who typed in, I don't think it was Western romance, it was something else, and then that book shows up, I'm not sure if that book fits what I'm looking for. And one thing I say is, if you confuse, you lose. And I'm confused as to what this is. Is that a cowboy sitting and watching the fireworks? What time period is this? Is this modern? Or, well, it can't be Western because there's fireworks. Like, and okay, maybe there were fireworks. I mean, I know, that might have been around, but that's not what my brain automatically thinks of, is fireworks in the Great Western, So, or is it not a cowboy? Is that maybe a Civil War general? Because it's dark, I can't tell. Are those ramparts blowing up instead of fireworks? The thing is I don't know. I'm not going to engage with that book. I'll keep scrolling on. And so this author has lost an ability to bring me in. Another great example of this is Lit RPG, which is literature role-playing game. And so there's books that are about, generally speaking, about people trapped in a game, a video game, sort of. The Lit RPG fans would like send me hate mail for saying that, but I'm a huge Lit RPG reader. So, but here's the fact: literature role-playing games, okay, usually a cultivation, adventure novel. Okay, when I look at the cover, I want lit RPG cultivation books. As a matter of fact, I type that keyword in a lot when I'm looking for my next read. You can create a fantasy cover of, a girl with a sword fighting two spiders, but the cover doesn't have anything, and there's nothing you can do to the cover to tell me it's a lit RPG. You can't digitize. There's no picture definition of what a lit RPG is. But I love lit RPG. I am much more likely to click on a book when the subtitle says an epic lit RPG cultivation novel. Now, that's not stuffing the words. That's not overplaying your hand, although that does help with your keywords and rankings. It really does. However, though, for the shopper, I will engage on that book more so than the one that doesn't tell me what it is, because we're lazy. We're lazy shoppers. We don't just click randomly on things. We click when we're more sure of, because we can just keep scrolling or just keep going and find something. So I tell especially new fiction authors that you should describe the genre. Don't go overboard, don't stuff, but just describe it so that the shopper feels more confident that your book is the kind of book they're looking for. And when it comes to nonfiction, any online marketer will always say the best way to make a sale is to use the customer's own words. Okay, so if I wrote a nonfiction book teaching people how to, we'll say, lose weight and look great, doing it. Well, I'm going to create a cool title that's, like weightless, something powerful or something, whatever, and then I'll say how to quickly lose weight and look great doing it by the summer. Okay, I have put the sales terms, I put probably some phrases that the person might use on Amazon to search for a book. Lose weight and look great. And then, yes, that helps me with the keywords. But let me tell you what, if you were looking on how to relieve sharp, acute lower back pain, and you typed in sharp, acute lower back pain, and you saw a book that said painless, and then it was, eradicate lower, sharp lower back pain, whatever the phrase was exactly. Like, I'm more likely to engage with that than the book that just says, back relief fast, or how to relieve your back. Like, no. This one said specifically lower back pain, which is the one I have, and sharp pain, which is what I have. This book is talking to me because it's using my words. It's the perfect fit. So I really like the idea of using subtitles to help clarify truly who this book is for and what it is, because then you will have more engagement. But people who are just like lower back pain, sharp pain, upper back, middle back, flare-ups, back spasms, and whatever. You're a car salesman. So I think there's a fine balance between the two.
Yeah, I think that you've sold me on that too, and I agree now. I think that maybe the way to look at it is whether you're writing fiction or nonfiction, you're trying to solve a problem. You're trying to help the reader find what they're looking for. And by the way, too, I love my share of lit RPG. I grew up playing Dungeons and Dragons, and graduated to the 8-bit games like Ultima and Bard's Tale.
Yep.
And now I'm just like, if any book can put me in that style of world, I am all over it.
Yep,
but I have not yet written a lit RPG novel. Maybe that's something that I need to think about with a pen name.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I think a good way to look at it is the same thing with blogging and SEO for Google. look, you can read all these things about all these little tweaks you can do to an article, you know, like, oh, use this hashtag, use this blah, 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 whole bunch of things. However, though, you have to remember the sole purpose of Google is when people are looking for something, you present them with the thing that helps them most with it. Same thing with Amazon. When shoppers are shopping for a book, that you have presented the right kind of book for them. I say the best way to truly affect Amazon's algorithm is write, you know, your title, subtitle, your cover, your book description, your keywords. Create those with the intention of helping the right people to find your book. And when you do that, you naturally do the right things that help to affect the Amazon algorithm. You know, it's if you think about it, like, I know people have ruined these tactics, but if you put yourself in the shoes of a shopper, okay, here's your perfect shopper, the person who's going to love this book. Now start saying, like, walk through that process. So, okay, great. They see this cover. What do they think? They see this title, the subtitle. Is this enough to say, yes, this is it? And then the book description. One of the tactics I really love to do is I will actually take the book cover, my book cover, I will take the title off of it. And then I will show it to somebody and ask them, what do they think this is about?
Fascinating.
And, you know, it's shocking the stuff that comes out of the mouth. So I did this. I was actually coaching a gal a couple years ago. And she had this cover. And it showed a dark silhouette of a female with a gun. And in the background, you could see the city skyline. But then the sky itself was like a hot pink fuchsia, you know, kind of like blur of stuff. And so I said, okay, first off, and usually if I do this, I don't want them to send me any information. I don't want to see anything. I don't want to know what they write in, because I want to come in as the shopper who has no idea who they are and make inferred decisions off of it. So I looked at it, I said, okay, I'm looking at your cover and I'm thinking this is probably like a female detective, you know, but it's a little steamy, maybe. You know, it's like a little hot. Maybe there's a bit of romance, you know, the heat of the night kind of thing going. And she's like, no, it's not even it at all. I'm like, what do you mean it's not it? She's like, well, it's actually a cop. I'm like, okay, well, there's nothing cop about that silhouette. She goes, and also this is actually like a bloody thriller. The person is murdering women in a most gruesome way around the city. And this one cop is the only cop who seems to have a beat and might even have a connection to the killer. I'm like, then you chose all the wrong colors, because why would you use a hot pink in the sky if this is a gruesome, bloody murder? There's nothing scary about the cover. And all of a sudden she was like, oh my God, you're right. And that cover was derailing everything, because she was showing on the cover something that the book was not. Another time too is that I did this. And by the way, when people write book descriptions, sometimes they write book reports, you know. I tell people there better not be more than 2 characters introduced in a book description. You put 3 characters and I'm going to forget. It's too complicated. Nope, just skip the name. If there's a important person in it, just don't bring up their name. Just say, you know, comes across a wayward teacher, like, so be it, you know, or whatever. Don't be like, and then comes in John, and John, you know, it's like, oh, you're killing it here. But I've seen it where people have spelled out the entire story. They almost basically gave away the ending. I'm like, why should I read this? They introduce way too many things. They think everything is super important. I'm like, look, you know, the crazy thing about a movie trailer is the movie trailer, you know, a good movie trailer will not show you the whole movie. They will not introduce you get the feel of, ooh, the stakes are big. Oh man, this guy might be able to save the world or not, or die in peril. You know, that's what a book description is. And so if you can connect that journey of somebody who knows what kind of book they want, whether it's a serial killer, you know, crime thriller, female cop, and then they see a cover that's, oh yeah, that's serial killer, you know, that's going to be gory, or that's going to be scary. Okay. And then they get to your book description and you absolutely pound in there. Whoa. Oh man, this is my kind of book, you've nailed a sale. If anywhere in that process you have messed that up, even though you might get your book to the top, you'll get it in front of the shoppers, it will continue to break the chain. Amazon will see that, and Amazon will be like, let's try another book. And so, yeah.
So basically hook the reader.
Yeah. Know who you're writing for. Know who your target market is. Design your cover with that. Design your title, your subtitle, your book description. And when you have those things in line, your funnel will convert even better. And Amazon will see that. And Amazon will reward you by putting you in front of more shoppers because they want to make more money. And your book's showing them that you got a good funnel and their shoppers are happy.
Yeah, you obviously have a tremendous amount of data that you've compiled over the years. Can you say pretty definitively that Amazon uses your description in weighting its ranking process?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I can say 100% because they've publicly said that. So there's been a lot of people out there that have said that Amazon does not index or crawl the book description. There's a couple of things to this. Number one is that Amazon's A9 algorithm, it used to have its own website, by the way, and it was a9.com. Until Amazon shut them down. It's a hilarious news story. I think it was on the Wall Street Journal, where
Okay.
it was proven that Amazon.com was telling A9 to promote Amazon's products over others, and Amazon's algorithm was like, no, that is counter everything that stands for Amazon, and you're going to ruin our situation. And then the A9 workers contacted the Wall Street Journal, I think it was the Wall Street Journal, and they wrote a report about it. And the very next day, the A9 website got shut down. The people were removed from that company, put under the person who was in charge of sales, and nobody was ever seen again. It's a mind-blowing story, but it's also a really big insight into how it works. But anyways, before that website got shut down, A9.com flat out said, we index the product descriptions and book descriptions of everything and take that into account. So they publicly said that. So that's one thing. Now, a lot of people have said, well, the book description, I can prove that they don't care about it. Like, for example, you can take a whole sentence, copy it, paste it into the search bar, and Amazon will come back and be like, yeah, we got nothing. Or the other thing that people will do is they'll make up a word like jibbity jabbity, and they'll put that in there, and then they'll do a search for jibbity jabbity, and Amazon will come back and say, yeah, we can't find anything. Well, that's because that's not how the book description works in terms of their algorithm. They don't see, their algorithm knows that when people shop, we do not use full sentences. We never do. We never write in, I would like to find a book that is about this, and that ends with the ending of this. Like, they know that doesn't happen. Matter of fact, they'll even try to cut out, you'll even see like the search engine will try to cut out all the other words that aren't important. And they'll try to say, do you mean like, this one phrase that we think fits like a book, a description of a type of book? They'll try to suggest you cut it down. So when they crawl your book description, they're not crawling and indexing an entire sentence. They're picking up on words that they know. Like, you've already told them things, in your choice of category, your keyword selection, your title, etc. You've already told them that, hey, this is sci-fi military. So then they're seeing, Earth bombardment, alien invasion, intergalactic war, battle cruisers. Like, they're picking up those words that helps them to say, yeah, this is definitely a science fiction military, book, because the book description also shows this. And what I like about it is that when I'm doing my keyword research, I love to put my words into the book description, not because I'm stuffing, although that does help, but because, remember, keywords are the words that your shopper uses when looking for your book, which means that if I'm looking for battle cruiser, intergalactic battle cruiser, and I see that your story has talked about battle cruisers, then I'm feeling like this is more my kind of book. So I like to write my book description, then I look at my keywords and I try to kind of mix and match. And I have found that when I do that process, the gravitas of my book description is so much cooler. Like, I'm using way better word, like Earth bombardment instead of, just a simple invasion, right? A intergalactic battle instead of, a battle in space. Like, oh man, these words are sounding much better to my sci-fi heart. So that's the same thing as Amazon's looking for particular words or phrases that fit what they think the book is, and they're using that. The other thing too is the reason why making up a word is not indexed is because that's honestly for Amazon safety. So if you invent a word, they're not going to index that. They also haven't attached that word to a genre. It's nothing to them. This is important because if somebody put in some heinous word, or something that like they're very protective over making sure children don't find certain books or things like that. They're not going to just randomly make books indexable for something and presenting books because somebody typed in something. They want to control what can and can't be searched, what can and can't be found. So it's almost like in their minds in the books, they're like, hey, here's like a almost quantifiable number of keywords that they've attached to a genre. And if it's outside of that, they'd kind of disregard it. And then maybe over time they might add some, but generally speaking, that's kind of how they work with it.
I know a lot of people out there are probably fascinated by this discussion and getting really, really interested in checking out Publisher Rocket. If an author out there is interested in Publisher Rocket and learning more, where should they go?
Well, check out publisherrocket.com. You can find it right there. Also, too, at kindleprinter.com, I've got a contact me page. You can hit me up with any questions.
Absolutely. And again, I will stress that this is one of the most useful pieces of software I've ever used as a self-published author. And it is very fairly priced for anybody who wants to jump in. Dave, this has been absolutely fascinating. I thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely, Dan, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Everybody check it out at kindlepreneur.com. You will learn so much about self-publishing, and by all means, check out Publisher Rocket as well.